We're live.
And we are live. Welcome, Karen, to our live event.
Yes, a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are learning.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Tonight, we're talking about have you ever stayed longer than you wish you had? And so it's so delightful to have Karen Tsan, a transformational life coach, with us again as our expert in the house. To address this very important issue, I'm Barbara Pointe, your host, broadcasting live this evening from Puerto Vallarta, where it's extremely humid and hot. And Karen, you're also in Mexico.
Yes, it's I don't know about you. You said it's hot, but it's very gloomy this week. Like it feels like even I'm looking outside, it keeps looking like it's going to rain.
Yes, it's been a strange week because the sun always shines in Mexico, but this week it's been a bit humid and muggy and a bit cloudy.
Yes. So it is strange. You're right. The sun always shines in Mexico.
God. Yeah, how hot I feel, but we're so glad to be here. I'm glad that you're here, Karen, and I'm glad that everyone's here. And whether you're here in this real moment or on a different timeline, or you're joining us after for the replay, let us know that you were here in the comments by typing in hashtag replay or hashtag healing. What we're talking about tonight is really important stuff, and you were never meant to go through any of this alone. So Karen and I are here to support women and humans that are going through some of these difficult things. Again, our topic tonight is leaving a toxic relationship, and if you ever stayed longer than you wished you had. So before we get started, we have a lot of questions that we've gathered through the week. Thank you to Karen for that. Karen, just tell us a tiny bit about your practice.
Yes, so I am a trauma informed coach and I help women recognize and break the self abandonment pattern that are keeping them settling in relationships. So that way they can rebuild the self trust that they need and stop shrinking for love and create space for relationships that actually and truly meet them where they're at.
Very nice. And I love right now to say that Karen is also one of our experts in our private community called Healing Forward. That is a Facebook group that's approaching 10,000 women and growing every day. So you can reach Karen for coaching and advice in that group, but you can also join the group. And we hope that you do that. So again, we're not meant to go through this alone. I'm also a certified life coach out of Canada, trauma informed, and very passionate about this subject. And the key is how do we move forward? So I like to have guests on my show and in my group that I have curated with intention. And I've seen the shift. I just got goosebumps when I said that people experience when they go through coaching with Karen. So drop healing or replay if that resonates with you and you'd like to reach out directly to Karen for some coaching. But let's get started, Karen. What kind of questions came in this week regarding leaving a toxic relationship that you wish you weren't there?
Yes.
You're still there.
Yeah, that's right. When we're stuck in these relationships and we don't know how to leave. Okay, so the first question I get, and this one's a very common question, so I do hear this one a lot. What's the difference between a difficult relationship and a truly toxic or narcissistic one?
So a difficult relationship and then the truly toxic, what's the difference?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, of course, when we're working with clients, we're going to have a little bit more context because context matters. And a difficult relationship could be, like the way I see it, there could be two different difficult relationships. One, maybe you're just not a match. Maybe you're just trying to force something it's just not working. Think of it like an example would be like one person's vegan and one person's not. Like, yes, it can happen, but if you're just trying to make something fit that's not fitting, so maybe that's what's making it difficult. Or a difficult relationship could be one person is challenging the other one to step up. So maybe it feels difficult and there's like a bit of resistance there. But the difference between just being difficult or being like toxic or narcissistic, I'm going to say, is the manipulation. It's the mind games. So when you're dealing with somebody who is very manipulative, they're going to undermine you. They're going to really manipulate the way you think, separate you from, your friends or people that might support how you're feeling, and they're going to diminish the way you feel and your reactions. So when it comes to toxic relationships, it's going to be more mental than just we're not a good fit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think all relationships on some level it can be challenging, but in those difficult relationships, it's very important that you have values in common.
Yeah.
And so if you can do a value assessment in a relationship and your values aren't aligned, then maybe, that's just a conversation. But it, like in that toxic relationship, all those things that you were mentioning, Karen, about manipulation, gaslighting, that mental games, I
Yeah.
would I would also add, and the list goes on for so long, that you would kind of feel that in your body, and
Yeah.
of like just getting so much smaller, and
Yeah.
your world becomes smaller. You mentioned also the isolation that women go through when they're being cut off from family, friends, community, with their narcissist or their abuser, and starting to question their own reality too. What do you think about that?
I think that is the worst experience anybody can go through, is having somebody make them question their reality and themselves and their own feelings. It is probably the biggest sign that we often ignore when we're in a toxic relationship. And this is where I want women to learn how to trust themselves and their intuition and challenge. And that's the hard part, but we want to be able to start challenging when we're feeling like something's not fitting. And just recognizing the way they respond would be a good indicator if it was a toxic relationship.
Very, very good points. I like that. And Karen, you know that I've been busy podcasting, and I had a psychotherapist who's just written a book. Her name's Terry Folks, and she defined anxiety in such a clear way. Because one thing I've seen time and time again is especially in our group and in this topic, is that women experience anxiety and even panic attacks as one of the symptoms. And so she said the psychotherapist said anxiety is when we actually get cut off from trusting ourselves. So how nice that you build women back up to reconnect and stay connected to their intuition. Do you find in your practice that women are challenged to push back against the narcissist?
I think we're raised not to push back against anybody.
Boom, smash that subscribe button if that resonated with you. But isn't that true? So it's conditioning, and yes, it's so true.
Yeah, and we forget it. Like, this is why I really want women to have the community. Like, what you're building, Barbara, is so important because we need to constantly remind each other. It's easy to like watch a movie or a show and be like, oh, I would do that differently, or she should have said something. But when it comes to our own lives, like, we're blind to our blind spots. We're blind to like where we might be shrinking or abandoning ourselves. And having someone go, whoa, 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 no, 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 no. What do you mean that happened? Like, explain that further. And that's when you get to kind of go, oh my goodness, like, maybe I should have asked more. I should have like demanded a better response. But
Yeah,
it's
I
hard.
It's hard when you're looking through the rearview mirror. The topic tonight, if you're just joining, is have you ever stayed longer than you wish you had? And I think everyone would probably, I don't know, everyone has their own answer, but a lot of the answers are going to be yes. Oh, wasted 2 years or 20 years. But with that often comes shame. And that just what you were just talking about reminded me that the people that we speak to and hold space for when they're trying to process this are internalizing shame and blame. So I think that you hit on a really good spot with the blind spots. And it's amazing to have a coach like Karen or myself, because it's a lot better than going to someone who's really biased, like your mom, or someone that might not have the objectivity and the training required to really do some deep processing in a non-judgmental space. So Karen, what are other important things when we could talk about right now?
So what you just said, I want to mention something else. By the way, Barbara, I don't know. I sometimes I'm getting a little bit of a lag on my end.
Oh, okay. I'm not.
Okay, as long as you're not, and as long as the stream is still consistent, like it's in and out, but it's fine now. So one thing I wanted to say to a point you just said about going to the wrong person for advice, and it's not saying they're wrong because they're not good people, but I did see this quote and I loved it so much because it was something I experienced often. It's like, stop telling someone to be strong when they came to you to be weak. Like sometimes we need help and we're looking for help. We're not looking for someone to say, be strong, you got this, it's all going to work out, because that minimizes where we are. And if you've had to be strong your whole life, as many of us have, being told to be strong when you just need support is crushing. And it's something that I experienced a lot. And it's part of why I wanted to be the voice for people who are tired of being strong and wanting support.
Yeah. That's so beautiful what you said, and your face lit up with passion, because sometimes when we're in these relationships, it's challenging to ask for help because we're already isolated and we're already vulnerable. But we know as coaches that you're already being incredibly courageous and strong. Mm-hmm. So that is like already set up in the frequency of a coaching container. But I like that so much. And just to have the non-judgmental support as you move through your blind spots, that's really the magic to becoming more resourceful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, I want people to know they're allowed to, like you said, like having the courage to ask for help. Like that is so hard. And for people who often have never asked for help because they didn't know they don't even know how to ask, being shut down is going to make it harder to try again. So that's why you want to make sure you're asking somebody that has the ability to listen. And being vulnerable, which is so important for a relationship, it kind of works both ways. Like you being vulnerable yourself is a skill, but being able to listen to someone while they're vulnerable, that takes a lot of skill as well.
It really does. And that's why we've invested the time in really learning how to hold a space where we can listen neutrally and stay grounded for you while you in a neutral space. That's very, very important. There's so much magic that happens when you get support and you get coaching. And I think we're both passionate about it because it's such an important subject. It comes up all the time. With everyone I talk to, I honestly believe There are so many narcissistic personalities, and that's not even a gross overstatement. I mean, statistically, the High Conflict Institute says that these personalities are on the rise, and there's actually some reasons for that. However, we're going to deal with high conflict personalities at one point or another. So if we can have the support and the tools to move through it neutrally, and rise out of it, I think that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Barbara, are you ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question. So, why do so many women stay in relationships where they feel unseen, disrespected, or emotionally drained?
Unseen, disrespected, and emotionally drained. Well, that's what happens through the process of being with a narcissist. You actually end up feeling, even not really, it doesn't really happen, but you end up feeling like you've been erased. But really you're not erased. And I wrote a short ebook about that called Erased by a Narcissist. But people would say to me, but Barb, you haven't been erased. But we feel that way because we've been so minimized and become so small, and maybe we've lost our identity, or maybe we've abandoned ourselves, and all of those things contribute to it's just how challenging it is, because these people, they just wreak havoc in our lives. In fact, I was talking to a woman yesterday, and I often find some of the most beautiful people are with narcissists. She's just a beautiful person, but she was contemplating things, and then I said to her, well, why would you take a chance? Even if your intuition's telling you it doesn't feel safe, why would you take a chance? Because really these people can just wreak havoc, I'll say, or they cause a lot of damage. And that's very emotionally draining, to your point, Karen. It's a huge drain on the resources of our emotional field. And so things get very confusing and very fast, especially if we've been in this relationship for a long, long time. Did I answer your question?
I think so too. I think you did. And, I'll add like the fear of regret. Like, what if, you're manipulated so much? You're like, what if I'm wrong? What if, everything they said about me was correct and I'm making this up? What if I'm dramatic? Like, there is so much, and you said this before, and I love that you mentioned this, the shame that we go through. So we're in our heads doing mental gymnastics, trying to tell ourselves why we're wrong, why they're right. And it's just, women stay in these relationships because they feel like they can't survive being out of it because they were told for so long that they can't.
It becomes very, very familiar. And then when we start questioning our own reality, I think what happens as well is we do something, it's like a loop that we go through.
Yeah.
And that's actually called a limbic loop, where we're just trying to continuously process, well, what if they were right? And what if I am crazy? And all the gaslighting and the flying monkeys that come out. How do we get out of that loop? Because as long as we're in that loop, we're really still not into the deep healing, and we might be in that loop while we're in the relationship. It takes a lot to leave these relationships, and also, so often you hear, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? And it's often not that simple. It's a very complex dynamic.
It's never that simple. And it, like, not just like the fact that children could be involved, because that's a layer that makes it complicated, but we're talking about a problem that's happening now and the years before this relationship happened. We're talking about like all the childhood wounds that led to choosing a partner that feels unsafe. There's so much involved where walking away it's not that simple. It's not like packing a weekend bag and just going to your friend's house. I love what you said, and I made a note of this morning because I was listening to a podcast and it talked about, break the pattern today or repeat the loop tomorrow.
Okay.
It's easier said than done. It's not saying that, okay, just you heard it here, and now you're never going to do it again. Like, I wish it was that easy, but we have to think about our future self and to be able to make the hard decisions for our future self to have the best opportunity. So when it comes to these patterns, as hard as it is, we want to move forward and take the action of breaking the patterns as much as we can. And maybe it's just one tiny little step, but that's what we want to move towards, just slowly trying to break the pattern, or even breaking the pattern up so you can see all the different elements and then breaking those one by one.
I love that. Break the pattern.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Do you have another question that came in?
I do. Okay. So, why does letting go feel so painful for women who've spent their lives being needed by others?
Wow, these are really complex questions.
Really?
You have to detach from a lot, I think, when you go through the healing journey. And for me, part of it was surrendering and detaching. Those were strategies that I had to implement into a daily practice, surrender, detachment, and then having a self-love practice where you're putting yourself first. Because again, speaking about patterns, if you've always been in that, like you have to be needed and the codependency cycles, it's going to feel really uncomfortable or unusual to unfamiliar.
Yes, right there. It feels new, it feels different.
Mm-hmm.
And our brains are designed to survive, and we survive by recognizing patterns. So anything that feels new feels like danger. And unfortunately, even though it's going to be safer, it still feels like danger.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, let's keep going.
Yes, let's keep going. Okay. So, what are women actually afraid will happen when they finally choose themselves and walk away? So, what are they afraid will happen? What is that fear behind walking away?
I think that's a really good question to explore. But when we get down to whatever the fear is, I think that the pathway, I didn't know I'd be answering these hard questions, is what is the core fear? And you can really drill down to identify core fear and the core languaging that's around that core fear. An example would be it's kind of interesting, like because a lot of women who are in these broken relationships sometimes financially struggle. So a core, if I don't have money, if I'm not making money, a core fear around that is actually without money, I'll die.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a conscious thought, but it's the drilling down and that can take you to that core fear. And when you hit that, that's when you can start doing some work to come out. It's like this and then out.
Yeah.
So,
and that's such a common fear for women. Like, what if I can't survive on my own? What if I can't do it? How will I figure it out? Like, it's such a common fear. And again, because we are wired for survival, to take ourselves out of the tribe, to fend for ourselves it's like asking for death.
yeah, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. And it's a faith journey because sometimes you just have to go day by day. So I would say it's definitely a faith journey and a self-love journey.
Yeah.
You know, you have the greatest gifts when you're confronting the greatest darknesses. The greatest darknesses. I don't know if that's a word, but
Yeah, like the challenges and all of that. Hmm.
yeah. So, but it takes time to receive those gifts. But you've got to love yourself through the journey as you're figuring it all out. And then there's all the practical stuff like planning to leave and
Hmm. All the
taking
logistics.
all the logistics of taking care of yourself financially, or maybe just putting yourself first just enough to not abandon yourself, back to one of our core themes of our talk tonight, to just put a little bit of money away and to make a little exit plan or a strategic exit plan. Because again, in these relationships, often there's the dynamic of coercive control. There's so many dynamics, but how can you put yourself first? You know, how can you take care of yourself?
Hmm.
Can you love yourself through this? How
Yes.
can you not abandon yourself?
And how to like trust your intuition, when we're so cut off from our intuition over all of these years, trusting it takes practice. It's not something that comes online right away. You talked about like just kind of going through the darkness. And, one of the things I was thinking about this week was actually, I was thinking about how the souls that chose, and I'm not saying like we chose pain because we wanted it, but the ones that had to go through all these pain, and I do believe that our souls chose our path. So the ones that chose the pain, I think we chose it to get the wisdom from it. But we need to take that step, that courage. We need to have the courage to allow that wisdom to come in. And it's such a difficult position because it's scary and you don't know how to trust your intuition until you practice doing it. So it's like you gotta take that step before you feel ready. But I do believe that we went through this pain for a reason, and it's not to stay stuck in the pain. It's to be able to say that we came out with so much ability to understand ourselves better, and that wisdom can only come through walking through that darkness. Like the only way out is through.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and you have to go through. You can't turn around. You can't escape it. You have to just keep going forward and go through it. That is the only way out, Karen. I think that's so powerful.
Yes, and we want help, of course, and there can be guides helping us along the way. Like I can hold out my hand and help you and give you support, but I can't walk through the darkness for you. And when I was in my own journey, I remember hearing that and just feeling so small and so defeated and thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I remember having my coach and my therapist say to me like, the only way out is through. And it was the thing that I just kept repeating to myself to keep going, just putting one step, one foot ahead in front of the other is what I was trying to say. But it's true.
Yeah, it really is. Now, looking back and thinking of some of the women listening today, what would we say now to women who are going through it, but they're losing hope? They feel hopeless.
It's so common to feel hopeless because you're going through uncharted territory. You haven't been here before. this is new. It's new for you. It's like it's going to be challenging, and it's easy to feel hopeless. But this is where the strength comes from. It comes from showing up for yourself and proving to you that you can do it. Because the more you do it, the more you learn to trust yourself. So it's not going to be easy. And having someone there to hold your hand, at least listen to you, like that truly does help as you're taking, one wobbly step in front of the other. And that's how I felt the whole way. I felt like, I wasn't sure. I felt like I had little Bambi legs and they're just struggling to take that step, but they did, right? And I want women to know that the feeling of hopelessness, that discomfort, it's there to help you grow. Discomfort isn't going to kill you. It feels terrible, but we truly, everything in life is teaching us how to grow stronger and better. And sometimes growing means being physically uncomfortable.
That's definitely true. I would say hallelujah to that. And we've definitely been there, and it can be very, very uncomfortable. And you know what? Go easy on yourself, because some days it's just one day at a time, and some days it's 1 minute at a time. And one thing I felt very comforted by, and I still do, is that it's temporary. Sometimes, these mantras or these thoughts can help us, but it's temporary. It doesn't feel temporary, and I mean, I'm using that very kind of subjectively, because sometimes we go through a 10-year divorce or an 8-year divorce or a 1-year breakup, but those really tough days, it's
Yeah.
some of those
I
phrases.
Yeah, I really want to hone in on that, because yes, the bad days will pass. Like, yes, they are temporary. And in the bigger scheme of things, when we look back, we're going to see that they do pass. Those dark days do pass. Like the storm always passes. But of course, while we're in it, you're allowed to feel it. If you're in it and it's heavy, you're allowed to feel that. We don't want to just say, oh, be strong, it's going to be fine. Like, no, you're allowed to feel tired when you're in it, but know that it will pass.
Yeah, that phrase we hear so often. I'm fine. Everything's fine. How are you? I'm fine. But yeah, to really be supported, and to, we all want to be seen.
Yes.
And so when you're with someone in a coaching session, you have the opportunity to actually be like, I hear you and I see you. And that can be a very healing energy and a shifting frequency for you to move forward with whatever struggles you're going through. So how can we move forward right now? Did we cover all the questions that came in this week?
I've got a lot of questions. I can probably maybe 2 more questions.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay, so this one's going to be a pretty deep question, so I think we can spend a little bit of time talking about it. So, how do childhood patterns and inner child wounds keep women emotionally attached to toxic or unhealthy relationships?
Well, it's very familiar. Sometimes, you said something interesting earlier, and I wanted to touch on it. When you have that moment where you're like, you said, how did I get into a relationship with someone that's unsafe? And that's a hard thing to confront. But like we've been saying, it's connected to something deeper, and to a pattern. And it's kind of like the iceberg, and then underneath you've got that whole thing. And so that, I think, that's the invitation, is you just keep going, and you become more consciously aware of of all the things contributing to your patterns. And sometimes it's so much deeper than we even could ever imagine when we shake that family tree. I mean, that's a lot. This is such a big question, but goes back to conditioning, inherited family trauma, our habits of attachment. You're
Mhm.
passionate about that, I think, Karen. Our
Yeah.
attachment style. Um, but a lot of times, these people are very familiar to us. But we're not conscious as to why this feels so familiar. And
Mhm.
so that's the invitation of the work. And that's where you get the really valuable gifts, but it's a process.
Yes, I mean, it's a simple question, but it definitely requires a bigger conversation because there's so much involved. You touched upon a lot of different things, and yes, like it's the iceberg. So underneath it, there's just so many. I was going to say branches, and then I'm like iceberg and branches. I mean, yes, there are two different kind of illustrations, but yes, there's just so many different ways that could have shaped you to feel familiar where you're unsafe. And when you're able to slowly look at your patterns and recognize them, then are you able to interrupt them and create new patterns. But it does take that awareness and the compassion because childhood patterns, like they go deep. They go um, to places before you even formed language for some of these patterns.
Yeah, it's like an imprint, a cellular imprint
Yes.
before we're verbal. And sometimes even through our family line.
Yeah, yeah, lots of things that we can't see. It's for me, it's one of my favorite things to kind of work with when I'm working with clients is not just to understand the words and labels. I don't want to get lost in that. It's to truly look at the individual experiences and help connect them. So we're not looking to just label attachment styles. It's like, why did this form? Like, what was that moment? What was that need that wasn't verbalized to the parent, that wasn't recognized? And then slowly go from there. But it's just it's such an important part of healing. And right now, with the world, we're collectively seeing people really reacting from trauma, like across the world. And this is where I really want us to have this space to actually look at where our reactions are coming from.
Yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile, compassionate inquiry to make. If this is resonating with you, just drop healing in the comments because Karen and I would love to share some of our favorite books on this subject. There's some excellent ones, but there's a lot of trauma that we experience when we're in a relationship with a narcissist. And that trauma doesn't have to be a life sentence. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. So we want to see you move out of this quicker rather than staying in it forever. We want to see you move out of survival mode because when you're in survival mode, you can't even imagine your future or imagine something beautiful. You can't access your prefrontal cortex to think of beautiful possibilities. So after you can go on a timeline, and then you can get back into a place of possibility thinking with coaching. The other point that came up for me, Karen, when you're asking this question was that it takes consistency with coaching to see a shift. And obviously, these are incredibly deep questions that you're asking. But as you build trust and through sessions, um, definitely, I would say stick with it for a few months at least 6 weeks, and then you'll start to see these micro shifts and then larger shifts. And yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say on that.
Yes, I mean, it took a lifetime for these patterns to be built into us. So it's not going to go away overnight, and it's going to take some practice to break these patterns. Um, I love this, something I just learned this week that I want to share. So the opposite of fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. So we all know um, the survival modes that we get stuck in when we're dysregulated. So again, that's fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. The opposite of that is rest, digest, create, and connect. So when you're out of survival mode and your body's not having this like dysregulated reaction, you learn to rest, digest, create, and connect. And especially for women, we are so creative. Barbara, you shared a story with me last week about doing art, and in that moment that you were able to channel, and that's the creativity that we have available to us, but we can't get there if we're stuck in survival mode.
Oh, that's so well said, and all the more reason to, like, just to look ahead and to reach out for some support, because you're right. We want to live in a state of abundance, creativity, natural curiosity, joy, bliss, and safety, and love. So that is why we're so passionate about these subjects, and helping and supporting women to come out the other side of being stuck in these relationships that no longer are serving them, or asking them to abandon themselves. And you don't have to do that. So yes, yeah, I like where this is going, because we want our clients to feel the possibility of all that's before them, of being fully fulfilled, fully embodied in something other than just survival mode. And so many great strategies that we can offer during sessions, I would imagine. So in your practice, Karen.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you wish for your clients?
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want people to know that I understand how hard it is when you're in it, and how isolating it can feel. I've been there, you've been there, and I want people to truly see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that there's so much more of you that's waiting for you to discover her and let her out of her cage, it feels like, and it's possible. And we get there together. We don't get there by isolating ourselves more, even though it feels like it's probably the only thing we can do at the moment. But, we truly get there through support and through community.
Yeah, it's so true. And we're always looking through the lens that you have all the resources inside of you to make positive change, or to step into that transformation that you're so longing for, and to, I'm going to say, release trauma that is just begging to be processed and released. So all of these things are very, very possible. And yeah, well, this has been so much fun, Karen.
Yes.
It's very, very fun. What could be a really good way to close the session today? how can people reach you? How can they reach out? Of course, I'm going to put everything in the show notes below. But if you'd like to get in contact with Karen directly for some coaching or a discovery call, Karen, how can women reach out to you?
Firstly, Barbara, I want to thank you again. I love doing these with you. I love being able to share our struggles, right? Like to let people know that we've been there and give them hope that they can move through this. So I want to thank you so much for all the effort that you put into the group and supporting women, all the questions that you put into the Facebook group and the responses and just all of it. So I want to thank you for that. And if anybody wants to connect with me, you can reach me on my website. It's just my name, so Karen Tsan, TSAN.com. And through there, you can book a call with me.
Amazing. Beautiful. All right. Well, again, my website is barbaralapointe.com, and you can always reach me on the Healing Forward podcast YouTube channel, which you're on right now. Drop a comment in the links, send an email through. We'd love to hear from you. We will monitor the comments, wishing you every sense of peace, joy, bliss, and abundance as you go forward this week. And we hope that in some way this video has served you. And it's been so good to see you, Karen.
Well, you as well. Thank you, Barbara.